Folks, so to tie up the story I've been telling you about Butch getting fired and me procuring some orders to C-141s up at McCord, I need to go back and tell you the rest of the story. So when I called headquarters MAC, Military Airlift Command at the time, and this kid answered the phone, I thought, geez, I know that kid's name from somewhere. And then it dawned on me. He had been a student advance in Mother Flight, M Flight, and I was in O Flight at the time. But I had been selected to sit on a FAC board, faculty board, to review a student's poor performance in academics. It was him. And so Colonel Rush was the board president, and then one of his T-37 IPs was a member, and then I was the third member of the FAC board. So we sat in there, and this kid came in. He had flunked several morning stand-up questions. We used to have what they called stand-up eval, where you'd call on a student, you'd give him, he'd stand up, and you give him an emergency procedure. And if he got it right, he's not a problem. If he screwed it up, it was annotated in his grade book, and he was grounded for the day. So he had flunked several stand-up stands throughout T-37s and T-38s. Now, more often than not, that's indicative of an attitude issue. Anyway, he was at the FAC board because you were allowed to fail 2 academic tests going through the program. If you failed a third one, you met a FAC board. And usually that was just a formality. Because, again, the tests weren't that hard. They could be tricky, though. But anyway, if you studied and you prepared for it, it wasn't a big deal. So he comes in, and we review his records. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, this kid's really a dumbass. But what he had going for him is he had exceptionally high flying scores. He had good hands, if you will, good flying ability. So when all things were considered, Colonel Rush said, well, what's everybody think? And I'm thinking, how about a secret ballot? You know, my goodness. Anyway, the vote went 2-1 to retain him, and so he was kept. And we brought him back in, and when Colonel Rush said, well, the board has met and has decided to give you one more chance, and but he said, I suggest you get in the books. And I was a little bit PO'd because I saw it as a compromise. Anyway, so he asked if anyone had any questions or comments. Well, of course I did. And I said, Lieutenant so-and-so, I said, the board has voted to keep you. I said, so it looks like you're going to be reinstated. But I said, I tell you what, if you don't get into the books and you don't bring yourself up to speed with respect to procedures and techniques and so forth like that, he says, at some point, you're going to spear into the side of a mountain only. Instead of just taking yourself out, you're going to take out a whole crew. And I said, I suppose one thing they'll say about you is you'll be on speed because you're reputed to have good hands. Oh, so that we just left it at that. So the kid goes back to the squadron, and about a week later, I heard he was back before another FAC board. He had been given another chance to take the navigation test, which he had flunked. That was the third one he had failed. He had been given an opportunity to take the navigation test. Again, he failed it again. So they had another FAC board. And then I heard that FAC board decided to keep him too. You got to be shitting me. But anyway, so be it. So he comes back into the squadron. Now, I had heard from a couple guys that went from Vance to fighter lead-in out at Holloman. And every now and then they'd call back and tell us what it was like. And this one kid called back and said, you know, if you stumble on a academic test out here in Holloman, I said, he said, they don't call you in and beat you up about it. He says the rest of the guys in the squadron just call you stupid in the hallways and so forth. And he said that's worse than being written up in the grade book and so forth. And I went, damn, that sounds pretty good. So when I'd be going up and down the hallway, I'd see this kid, and I'd say, well, good morning, stupid, and just keep going, not make anything of it. Until this one day, when I had duty out in the RSU, the little house on the prairie, to monitor traffic, M-Flight had sent this kid down. And I looked at him and I said, oh, no. I said, you head back to the flight room. And I called down to M-Flight and I said, hey, listen, with respect to this one kid you sent down, I said, send down another one. I said, that one's too stupid. So, kind of let that fly. Didn't think any more about it. He graduated, went on his way. He went to C-141s. So anyway, he kind of went on his way, and I never heard or thought about him ever again until that phone call. That was the same kid that I had pretty well beat up while he was in the squadron. And I don't know if I'm being too unkind here, perhaps, but Jesus, if you'd have chewed my ass out like that and humiliated me like that, I never would have forgotten your name. But apparently he did mine. So maybe I wasn't too far off base with that. At any rate, that was my story on how I got to C-141s. Here in the next month or so, I'll tell you how I got out of C-141s. Anyway, good to see everybody, and keep smiling.